Hi, it's Rachel. In this video, I want to talk about assimilating divine love to your soul in that process. And when we have divine love, which is connected to divine truth, which is absolute truth versus relative truth, then we start moving into immortality. Immortality is being a part of divinity. It's just not living forever. It is defining a state of your soul that is a part of God so that it can never perish. And it has a sense of it that is part of His divinity. Okay, which is very different from being a soul that a lot of us are here in this earth plane that extends beyond this earth plane after death, but it's in a certain condition of being unaware and separate from that divinity, a divine nature of God. It's not you're separate from His love and the affections of His love. That love is always there. But this is talking about that aspects of His nature being actually a part of your soul. Okay, so it's part of your soul substance. Part of His substance is a part of your substance, which is very different than just being someone that's receiving the affections of His love. So this assimilating of divine love is what creates that, makes us partakers of the divine nature of God. So we have, first of all, the human soul is the foundation of this earth realm. When you talk about the foundations of the earth, it's in terms of spiritually what we're doing here, what our purpose is, and the reality that we've created kind of on top of this creation and greatly affecting creation, interacting with it. The foundation of that is the human soul, because that is the entity that governs or directs the energy that is playing out on this earth. So imagine you have your soul and you have a different energy that's interacting with it, then that creates a certain reflection. So what you see in our world today, a lot of, and growing in certain areas, is fear. So all of the energies governing the human soul come down to either related to fear in some way, or which is a lack of love. Okay, so that includes a lot of things when you also define as basically a lack of love. Okay, and then you have energies that are of love, and those affect the human soul, which is what is the expression that affects our spiritual form and likeness, and thus our physical. The physical is the last one to reflect what's going on, and that's all it is. It's just a reflector of what's going on underneath on a much deeper level. So when you talk about the foundations of the earth, that I'm referring to is talking about how this whole realm is constructed and what's happening in it. And the foundations of that is the human soul, because it's the energies coming through that soul that is manifesting this world as we know it. Okay, and it's either going to be manifesting things that are reflecting a lack of love, or it's going to be manifesting things that are reflecting love. Now, you can have a natural love, a human love, that you can grow in and attain separate from diligently seeking the Heavenly Father and the Creator and His divinity and His divine nature. But that's limited. It's very limited in a lot of its abilities and perceptions and its extent. Divine love is without limit. It is something that you can always grow into for eternity, because it's a part of God who's eternal. He has no end. So this divine love is very, very significant. And the other very important thing that happens is divine love, and I mentioned this before, is attached to divine truth, which is absolute truth. It's the truth of God. It's the truth that's everlasting. It's the truth that never changes. Versus relative truth is what I happen to understand, to know what I think is true at my level of my journey. So you can only grow in absolute divine truth when you start growing in divine love, because that divine love is the guardrails of the truth, meaning everything is of divine truth, is governed, is loving perfectly from God's perspective and from His ways and from His wisdom. So the whole assimilating to this divine love has to do with the development of our soul. So what happens is you have, if we're just looking at our soul right now, what is within your, picture it like this cloud of energy, because it is something that doesn't have a form that we can perceive with our physical eyes. With our physical eyes, we only perceive what is physical. Okay, but you have this whole development of your soul that has different perceptions of itself that goes beyond what you see. And sometimes we think of this as intuition, right? You have a sense of something that's going beyond what you can physically sense with your senses, that you know. Sometimes people call it like a sixth sense, but it's a deeper knowing. What that is you're learning to operate from your soul perceptions and not just what you see. And when you're developing spiritually and growing spiritually toward divine love, toward divine truth, and growing in those, your soul is developing. So your soul perceptions are now able to partake of the wisdom of God and the love of God, so that in your situations you're now perceiving with a much deeper knowing that you would be able to do otherwise. So in a certain situation where if you don't have a developed soul, certainly growing in the divine love and divine truth, then you're functioning on mostly what you see. And so you're going to be very limited, because our perceptions are extremely limited, okay, just from the human being itself. But when you start developing in your soul a connection and this divine love and divine truth, then your soul perceptions increase in their ability. So that means in a situation that you are having an insight and a wisdom that is far beyond and higher, and a much higher, deeper, truer level than you could have otherwise. So that allows you to act in an amazing wisdom that you normally wouldn't have. And as those soul perceptions grow, it sort of consumes all your intellectual perceptions and your emotional ones. And I talked about that earlier. So that everything is coming from something much deeper, that you're in from a much deeper place, versus just mere mind, intellect, or emotions, which those are all extremely, extremely limited. Okay, but this soul perception can go very deeply, because when it's being developed in its spiritual facilities, which it is when it's growing in that divine love and divine truth. So one thing that I want to mention as I'm talking about this is, if what I'm saying, some of you aren't going to understand it. Some of you are going to reject it. Some of you can't really see what I'm saying yet. Okay, and this is what I've learned, is that we're all on a continuum of growth. Okay, we're all progressing spiritually. Some of us are growing faster than others, just depending on how we're focused on our development of our soul, on our spiritual maturity. Okay, so if someone is further along in their development and you're hearing them and you're lower, you're not going to be able to necessarily perceive all that what they're saying. because it's like someone talking about a high level physics, or that you know, mathematical equations or something that you don't understand all the foundations that made it up, so you don't understand what they're talking about. Okay, it's kind of like that. So it doesn't mean that it's not true or right. It just means that you haven't learned that yet. Okay, and then people that are higher. So if I'm speaking and talking about these things, someone that's more developed than me, they're going to see me and realize that I'm growing and progressing along the path as I should, because that's what it looks like depending upon where you are. So if this doesn't resonate with you, it just may be that you need more building blocks of truth before you can fully comprehend and receive these ideas. But that's what I would encourage you to do, is continue to seek for truth and seek for that divine love from God himself. And let me take a little sidetrack here, because this is very, very important. God is spirit, okay? He's without form. He is, but he has a soul and an expression and a personality, because he has great love for us. When you love, it creates a reality around you, a soul around you. So he's much more than just an energy force, or, you know, just some, I don't know, expanse out there. Okay, there's a lot of substance to him, but he's without form. He is spirit. So you can imagine, in a sense, that he's like light. Okay, he's everywhere, but if you're in the darkness, you don't see him. If once you come into light out of the darkness, that contrast helps you to see him. And that's one reason I think we're going through this earth realm and experiencing what a lack of love means. It's not that God's love was never here. It's always been here. It's been at the foundations of the earth, underneath our soul, in a sense, because he's before everything. Okay, that's where he starts. So he's like underneath all of us. Just his love holding us. But a lot of people just aren't aware of it, because they're blinded by fears and lies and false images. Okay, but his love is always there. But in a sense, like light, if we were always in the light, we never knew darkness, then he's so expansive, it would be hard for him to be individualized. Okay, so through this earth experience, not only are we in our souls finding our own individuality here, but the way that God interacts with us in this earth realm is he meets us and comes through our soul. That's how he, in spirit form, is individualized to us, how we can truly perceive him as he is. Okay? Not as an image, not what someone told you he was, not as a picture, not as a painting, not as whatever. If you're looking to God on the outside like that, you can never know him, because he meets you within. That's where he connects to you. And through that process, he's individualized to you, so that you can have a very intimate, personal communion with him. And it's very unique to you, because it's about you and him and your unique personality and his essence finding a union in a relationship. And everybody has their own unique one if they will seek to have that union, because love needs to be desired. But when we desire it, he starts meeting us from within us, and that's how he comes individualized. So that's a very important way of knowing him. And so going back to what I was talking about with assimilating this love, is that we have this soul, okay, that is energy and in its base form, but there is a certain substance and material to it, okay? And when we start getting part of the divine nature of God, that substance starts being transformed into being more like his nature, more like his likeness. Okay, we're just a part of that, a reflection of him. And so at the very core of our soul, the eye of our soul, that is where everything else emanates from. Okay, it's like the starting point of us is it's the very center, and then it goes out. Okay, so it's, and in that center, okay, so you can imagine kind of this circle, and then around it kind of our soul essence. That's the eye of the soul. And in there is where abides, I talked a while ago about two lies that are really two sides of the same coin. And it is a lie of that you are rejected, so you feel a lot of rejection in your life. And the flip side is that you're not significant. So there's a lack of significance, meaning you don't have value, you're not worthy, you're not worth anything, you don't matter. Okay, so fundamentally, everybody comes into this world struggling at some degree on a continuum with one of those two lies, which are really kind of the same thing. And what it is a lack of awareness of the love of God for you. Both of those suggest lack. Rejection is a lack of love. Insignificance is a lack of love. And so that's what is at the very core. And because of that, everything that we see and perceive is filtered by that. And that's how you see people reacting in this world. They're filtering through those lies, interactions, who they are, how they're perceived, everything. And actually, I'm going to start diving in a little bit more in the next video.